Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to New Hampshire in New England in the States once again, and this of course is another one of the beers that my parents brought back with them recently from their trip over there. So for this one we are going to head to 603 Brewery once again. This is the fourth and final instalment for now from the 603 Brewery in Londonderry, and from what I gather we've actually saved the best for last. So for this one we're going to have a little look at the Granite Stout. So this one comes in at 8.3%, as you might have guessed, it is a stout beer, and according to Rate Beer, this is one of the top 50 sweet stouts in the world. If you've watched the channel before, you know that I love things like Brewdog, Riptide, and just sweet stouts and big sweet porters and things like that. It's their beer styles that I really enjoy. So I'm really interested to try this one and see how we get on. I did have the Baltic Porter from Smutty Nose, which if I remember correctly is also a New Hampshire beer, and I really like that, so I hope this one is kind of up to the same standard of that. Maybe New Hampshire does have a kind of knack for these different beer styles, but I'm looking forward to this one. All the beers I've had from this brewery have been pretty interesting. They've all been a bit of a different pace, if you like, or a bit of a change of pace from what you'd normally expect, so I'm sure this one will throw up a few surprises as well. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward a little bit. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from 603 before. Hopefully I can do some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about 603 then before we open up the beer. So 603 Brewing are based in Londonderry in New Hampshire, which is a little bit to the southeast of Manchester in the southern part of the state, and the company was founded back in 2012. So the brewery is owned by three friends who met in university when they were studying engineering together. So this is Dan Leonard and then husband and wife Jeff and Tasman Hughes. So Dan had homebrewed during university, perfected a number of different recipes, and many of those actually have made their way into the current core range of 603 Brewing. But originally they were based in Campton, just to the north of Plymouth, but when demand for their beers continued to grow, they decided to take the plunge and turn the company into a full-time microbrewery, and they moved it to Londonderry. And over the last few years they've been continually upscaling their production. They do say that one of their main interests is to try and brew beer with like really big flavours but in quite high volumes, simply because of their engineering backgrounds. But these days they're employing over 10 people, and they've got a tap room in the brewery that you can go and visit. And I believe that my parents actually went in to the brewery and had a little look at it, and that was where they got these 4 beers that I've reviewed for you. So hopefully I can get out there and check it out for myself at some point. I've not visited New England in quite a number of years. It's actually been about 8 years since I've been over to the States. I've mainly been focusing on going out east recently, of course, but hopefully I can get back out to the States and do a little bit of beer tourism for you at some point. But if you get the chance, if you're in the New Hampshire area and the Manchester area, take a wee trip down and have a look at 603 Brewery. Their beers are pretty good, so have a look at them. But yeah, that's all you need to know about the brewery for just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So from what I read on the website, this is kind of an interesting one, because I think they said that they first produced this beer back in 2014, and what they were doing was they were brewing a load of different stouts in-house and then selling them in their bar and getting the punters to vote for them basically, and this was one of the ones that actually won the competition. Of course it has gone on to be really quite successful, so that's where they've kind of they've developed this beer from. So this one's an 8% sweet stout, like I was saying. It uses English noble hops, and it's got a malt base of chocolate crystal and black malt with some lactose added to it as well, some lactose sugar, and I believe it was a house ale yeast strain that they were using in this one as well. And like I say, it rated as one of the top 50 sweet stouts in the world. Just let you have a little look at the can. There you can see the 603. It's the same kind of standard design as the other ones, and there you can see the outline of New Hampshire. If I'm remembering correctly, Londonderry is kind of around sort of this area down here. Manchester is somewhere there, and then Londonderry and Derry are just a little bit to the kind of southeast of that. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get it out and get on with the tasting. A little bit of a smoky opening there, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And as you open it up, I'll tell you something, you can smell some of that lactosey, milky chocolate coming out of the beer. But yeah, there you go, look at that. That looks pretty damn awesome, I have to say. So yeah, as you can see, and as you would expect then, from a stout beer. It's poured a nice dark ebony rosewood colour. There's a half finger or 2/3 finger of a frothy beigey tan head on this one. When you sugar it up a little bit, the head recovers. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, it looks pretty much exactly as you would expect from a stout beer. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah. So with this one, straight away, you can smell the roasted black malt, the kind of backbone that this beer has. There's a lot of toasted kind of sweet brown sugar on top of that caramel. Not sure if it's quite treacle, more of a kind of caramel note that's coming out of this one. But definitely you can pick up that sweet, milky, lactosey chocolate coming out of this beer. There's maybe a little bit of a darker cocoa to it as well. But really, I would say the aroma of this beer is leaning towards the sweet kind of caramel thing and the sort of milky, lactosey chocolate. I would definitely say that about this beer. You can smell a wee bit of the earthy character from the hops. When you sugar it up a little bit more, when you sugar it up a little bit more, you get a little bit more of that kind of earthiness from the hops, and you do smell the roasted black malt just that little bit more prominently as well. There's a wee touch of a red fruity character in there as well, a little bit of a sharp red fruity ester, but not too much of that. It's really more about the malts, but the lactosey character, that sweet milky chocolate coming out of this beer is absolutely lovely. So just make sure you take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck in. That's always half the experience when it comes to your craft beers. But without further ado then, let's get stuck into this one. I do like the name of this actually, because Aberdeen, where I studied chemistry, was called the Granite City, so I do like it that there's a Granite Stout somewhere over in America. But let's get stuck into this then. So this is the Granite Stout from the 603 Brewery in Londonderry, New Hampshire over in America. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah. Right. What I'll say about this beer, the other ones that I've had from 603, you know, they've all been pretty good, but that's on a different level. That's the best beer out of the 4 that I've tried. All 3 of them, as I say, have been solid enough beers and been really quite nice. I have enjoyed them, but that's a level above. There's no doubt in my mind about that. This one's better than the others. Everything in that beer just goes together really well. I like it. It's got such a good balance. I mean, when it comes to sweet stouts, you can often find they are a little bit oversweet and they don't have a sort of roasty black malt backbone. It kind of is an art in itself to balance the roasty characters and the sweeter characters of a stout beer. A lot of folk just kind of put in loads of chocolate malt and a good bit of lactose and loads of caramel and things like that to kind of overpower the black malt a little bit and even take the volume of the black malt down that they're putting in. But this one, it does have that nice roasty black malt presence, and that's what makes it really strong actually. It's got just a lovely balance between the sweetness and the roasty characters. It's just, that's an art in itself. That's what makes this beer stand out quite a lot actually. I mean, it's getting close to 1,200 beers that I've reviewed for you now. That's one of the best, the most well-balanced sweet stouts that I've come across. I mean, as I say, I've enjoyed like Riptide and things like that. There's quite a few sweet stouts that I've tried, but I like this one, and it's almost got the roasty kind of bitter character that you expect of a porter, rather than a sweet stout, if that makes sense. But it does it really well actually. The mouthfeel though, as I always say with porters and stouts, it's the mouthfeel and usually the type of yeast that you use that gives you a stout rather than a porter. The mouthfeel of a stout is always thicker. But yeah, that's a really well done beer. I'll just say straight up before I even start describing the flavours, big thumbs up to 603 Brewery on this one. I can see why that beer is highly rated. So if you're into sweet stouts, have a go at that because it's really pretty damn good. So yeah, let's actually have a go at describing these flavours for you now. So with this one, you can feel that roasty black malt character just sitting there. It blankets the underside of your tongue. It comes in initially and then the sweeter aspects just take over a little bit. You can feel the sort of, almost, I want to say the oiliness the oily character of these brown sugars. You get a really sweet brown sugar character in there. It mellows out a little bit, and then you start to get the kind of lactosey and chocolate and cocoa-y flavours. When you progress further into the aftertaste, you've seen how long it was since I've taken a sip of it now. It's the roasty black malt and some of that cocoa that's sitting there. You can get a little bit of that sort of residual brown sugar character in the middle of your palate, but it's the malt base in this one is just really well balanced. That's the main thing about this. You can feel a little bit of that lactosey character just kind of sitting there in the middle of your palate. It's a really well balanced beer, this. As I say, I think one of the best, the most well balanced sweet stouts that I've come across, actually. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, the hoppy side of this beer is quite simple. I mean, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of that earthy character. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, the earthiness kind of stays there, but you get a little bit more of herbal quality out of it. Round at the front corners of the palate, you can detect just a little bit of a floral note, a little bit grassy around the front curve of the tongue as well, but that is exactly what you expect from the English noble hops. What I would say about this beer is it's not too kind of bombastic, it's not too bold in any of the flavours that it takes in. It's all about how they're balanced together. That's a fair way to describe this one. It's not overly sweet, it's not overpowering you with the lactose, it's not overpowering you with the brown sugars, and it's not overpowering you with the roasty characters either. It's just all about how the flavours combine together, and that's its strength. The strength of this beer is just how well things blend together. But I mean, if they've made this back in 2014, they've obviously played with it quite a little bit, and that's, you know, that's what it's all about. Experimentation is a big part of brewing, and they've probably played with this quite a bit to make it stronger and stronger. And it's worked, I can tell you that. But yeah, it's nice. In terms of the fruitiness of this beer, it's not got too much in the way of that, but as I always say, if you just go behind the front curve of your palate, you'll get that little oily bubble where some of the fruity esters come out, and there's just a little touch of a sort of slightly candied red fruit ester. It's not really sharp, it's just a little bit juicy. As I always say, it reminds me of those little heart-shaped sweets that you get in the Haribo Star Mix, and it's almost the roasty black malt character in this one. As the beer mellows out a little bit and as it warms up, it just smooths out. And if you tried this beer blind, you could almost be forgiven for thinking there's a little bit of coffee or something in there, because the roasty black malt character does have that almost coffee-ish smoothness to it. But I think that's the main strength of this beer. As I've repeated a few times, the main strength of this one is that when you have a sweet stout, a lot of breweries forget it is, you know, a stout beer is supposed to have some kind of roasted malt quality in the background, and they just go all out for like lactose or brown sugars or chocolate and things. These guys have found a really good balance with this beer, because it's quite obviously a stout. The mouthfeel, the roasty black malt character means that it's obviously a stout, but they've added that sweet aspect to it. So in the traditional sense, it really is a sweet stout. I'm probably blabbering a load of rubbish, but that's just my take on it. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer's mid-bodied. In terms of sweet stouts that I've had before, it is a little bit lighter than some of them, but it has that nice oily and slightly creamy mouthfeel. The lactosey character that you get in this beer does thicken it up a little bit. It has that oily aspect, it's a little bit creamy, and with the hops have got a nice little bit of bitterness to them. As I said to you, the balance in this one between the roasted side of the malt base and the sweet side of it is really good. That's the absolute strength of this beer. There's a tiny little bit of a juicy fruity character, but overall, you know, the main point about this beer is that I can see why it's really highly rated, and they've done a great job with it. What would actually be really cool would be if they could take some of the aspects of this one and stick them into a Scotch ale. I'd like to see them brew a beer in this kind of feel, if you like, but as a Scotch ale. I always love trying Scotch ales from different parts of the world. I'm not sure if these guys have done one. If they have, I would love to try it. But if they could brew a Scotch ale that has this kind of mouthfeel and this sort of balance between the malt base and things, I think they'd be onto something like really nice. But yeah, a really good beer, and I'm definitely glad that I got to try this one. So thank you once again to my parents for bringing these beers back with them from New England. It's been really cool to try some breweries that I would never otherwise have come across. So yeah, my final review for the moment from 603 Brewery in Londonderry in New Hampshire. The Granite Stout, a really good beer. I can see why this one's so highly rated. It's all about how the malt base various balances, and they've done a fantastic job with it. So yeah, so once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media. Make sure you check out some of these 603 Brewery beers. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. And until the next time, it's Slange Now. It's been really good to do this beer for you. The Granite Stout from 603 Brewery in Londonderry in New Hampshire, over in New England in America. Once again, thanks to my parents, and thank you to you guys, the viewers. Slange Now.